don't know. I'm inclined to do this to do the BLM one now, like today, just for the same reasons that Jayla brought up, which is like it's topical. Like this shit's happening right now. Um, I don't know.
Your raw reaction to it all.
Yeah,
Not like once everything's settling down, like
yeah.
it's different.
That is
when you're
true.
from it.
Like I feel like if we don't do it now, like there is no better time than right now.
Yeah.
If you
I think so
guys
too.
if you guys want to talk about this,
Do you guys live near cities where there's protesting happening?
Bro, I live in New Jersey. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's every.
I'm like 30 minutes from you, Jayla, so yeah.
Oh yeah, DC,
Yeah.
Wildland. We love it. Wait, where does Boom live?
I live in the south side of Chicago. So yeah,
Oh.
there's yeah, there's some
shit happening.
Oh, that's not even a question. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like.
Okay.
I mean, what do you, Poner? You seem neutral. Boom. What do you think for today?
Wait, I seem to what?
Poner seemed neutral about whether we should do BLM or
Well, I mean,
Jayla.
I think that I mean I've got my own things that I would like to say on the matter and share. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
if that's what you want to do, I am completely down.
Yeah, I'm down for it. Boom. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay.
I swear to God, after next ALGS, we're striking while the iron's hot and we're getting Jayla in here.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
we could do it.
perfect.
We could do it before the next LGS tournament.
Yeah, whenever you guys want to do it, you guys know I don't have a job, so
Hey, shut up.
Hey, preach.
you know I'm just sitting in my room all day.
No, legit. Like, yeah, I think anytime is good, but right after the next one, that could be cool.
Pony, you want to open?
Sure, absolutely. Sorry.
Wow, those pipes.
Yeah. La la la. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Three Stack. I am Huge Poner. I'm joined with Boomrazzle, Kandyrew, and a very special guest this week is Ninjayla. Ninjayla, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I'm all right. I think it's not a secret that there's some really terrible, really horrific stuff going on in and around the country right now, and we're gonna take a pause this week in this episode to just kind of talk about it, and just to be like completely upfront, I would just like to say that I speak for the Three Stack, but I'm gonna let them have their own time to say the exact same thing. But Black Lives Matter, and if you don't support that, then I don't know what to say to you at this point anymore, if I'm being quite honest. Candy, I think you have some things you would like to say as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so basically the idea was, obviously for those that are listening, Ninjayla is a very accomplished streamer on Twitch, and she has a great story and behind her success. And she recently got casted on the Apex Legends ALGS tournament as an analyst. But obviously, as Poner said, given the current events that's been happening, we didn't feel like it was appropriate to kind of like dive into that this week. But at a later date, we'd probably come back and have Jayla back on to talk about her adventures. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, so obviously, for those that are listening, the latest sort of, I don't even know how to put it, but I just feel like the stuff like this has been happening for so long. I mean, like, I feel like there was a wave of it a couple, maybe 2-3 years ago. And then more recently with George Floyd, there's protests and just everywhere around the country, and not even around the country, but like around the world. I don't know. What are your sort of initial thoughts, guys? What's your initial opinions on everything? What comes first to mind, gents and Jayla?
Oh, okay.
Jayla can take it. You know what?
My turn to talk.
No, Jayla, you take it. You take it.
I know that you just mentioned that it's something that's been happening for a while, and there was a recent wave of it. But I honestly feel like what's happening right now has been happening for a very long time. But like as far as going back to of course, you know, the civil rights movement and beyond that, where um black people have been being policed and treated as targets, or seen as like predators
Hmm.
because of the color of their skin. But I feel like the way that the world is now, this has been the most, I guess, prime time for us to be heard because of the changes that have and the progress that we've made as a society. People feel more comfortable speaking out about the police because there's been, I guess, fighting for everybody's rights, not just black people, but you know, gay people,
Hmm.
immigrants. There's been a lot of fighting for rights in this country, and I feel like I don't know, like this has probably been the best time. This is probably the best time for any of this
Definitely
to
feels
get
different.
done.
This one, like this
It
particular.
it does feel different. Like people, I feel like people believe for once, like not for once. I guess that sounds really bad. Like truly believe that they're out there and it's gonna change something.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like things have hit such like critical mass essentially. Like we saw it what was it 2012, 2013 with Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, that
Um
was. Oh my god.
yeah, and
The guy walked.
I mean,
Yeah, dude.
I'm gonna be completely honest and straightforward with you guys. Like when I saw the evidence and I watched the court case, I knew that he was gonna walk based on all the evidence. And in my mind at the time, I was like, I don't know if he did what they're accusing him of doing, but I know that they are not going to be able to convict him, and this is going to turn ugly. And that ended up happening. And I thought, well, I mean, maybe he didn't do it. And then, like, literally within a year, he started making headlines again and doing crazy shit. And I'm pretty sure like he went to jail afterwards for different
Yeah.
things that he did more.
Didn't he buy the gun? That didn't
He
he like
sold. He
he
auctioned
sold
it.
the gun.
Yeah.
He sold the gun from the
Yeah,
murder.
and sold it like as like, "Hey, this is the gun that killed him." Like,
Some
what
memorabilia.
what
Oh
the
my
fuck
god.
is wrong with you? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
And it like at the time, watching him walk, I was like, okay, like in that moment, I was like, this kind of is not surprising to me. Um, it's just crazy, like I don't know, seeing that happen and then seeing what happened afterwards. It's like, wow, I feel like I was lied to almost essentially like, and I felt really bad because like everyone was so up in arms. And I was like, at the time, again, I wasn't like really feeling the same way, and here we are. You know, what is this? 8 years later, and we're still dealing with it. What seems and feels like a different situation, but it's still like some absolute like a racist mentality where you see someone and you just make that assumption, like stereotyping essentially,
Right.
and it leads to someone's
Yeah.
death. Like someone died over this shit, and
Yeah.
it's happened this time. It happened back then, and it's happened dozens and hundreds of times between that point and now. And I think it's happened so many times that like everyone's just fed up, and then you
There's like no way they can cover it anymore. Like they can't convince you that it's not what it is
and
anymore. I think that's what they were doing.
absolutely, and that's kind of like the point where I am, where it's like, okay, this has happened so many damn times, where it's like an unjust killing, and I'm not saying like it doesn't like unjust killings don't happen, with other situations and other people of different colors, or even like there's cops that kill white people for terrible reasons because it's just bad police work. They made a bad call, but it just seems to happen like so much more, and against like people of color that it can't be ignored anymore. Like I don't know. Like I'm trying to process it all, and I've been trying to deal with how I feel about the situation and put some sort of well thought logical words behind it. But it's such a complicated. It's like a human problem. Like how do you fix a human problem? Something that's embedded in all
Like
of
each
us.
individual like human, like it would take something different to change every single person.
Yes,
That's what
absolutely.
that's what makes it so, I don't believe that it's unrealistic or that it can't happen, but everybody is so different, like, as an individual. Like, what would it take to change every single body's, like, mindset that is a racist?
Yeah, we got a long way to go, man. Like it's I feel like this one, like kind of going back to like how this one's quote unquote different, like it's honestly like night and day compared to I want to say 2016 to 2018 when we had a similar line of killings. Like internet culture has definitely shifted. Like first of all, like we have
For sure.
all these brands kind of speak out, right? Like are very vocal. Before it was just like what maybe it was like Nike and Kaepernick was probably the biggest example of like a big brand supporting BLM, but now it's like
Yeah.
every big company isn't afraid to like speak out.
It's so blatant now.
Right.
It's
What's happened?
irrefutable. Yeah, like
Like,
there's
there's nothing you can say. If you say like, a man was literally murdered in the middle of the street.
Yeah, like choked to death.
It
on
sucks that it had to
video.
happen this way, like, it had to be, like, so blatant, like, somebody had to be kneeling on a person's death until onto their neck until they died for people to be like, "Okay, maybe that wasn't okay," and then there's still some people that are like, "Oh, well, we don't really know what happened before this, before the video started." The fact that people will actually try to justify why somebody should be murdered in in that way.
The guy was George Floyd, I think was he got into like the whole situation apparently over a counterfeit $20 bill. Like
Yeah. Imagine losing your life over fake money.
yeah. It's
That's something that I've seen on socials too. Like they'll post someone's, arrest history.
that's
The
so
rap,
bullshit
their
too.
yeah, and the rap sheet, and they're like, well, so he was involved in a couple different crimes in his life, and it's like, okay, so you're saying that it's cool that he was fucking killed? Like
Yeah.
what? Like I've been involved in shit that I am not proud of in my past, and what that doesn't mean I deserve to die
You need
over
to
this
be choked
shit.
out. Yep, you need to die, Poner.
Yeah, like what the fuck are
Yeah,
you
my
saying
God.
it's
right now?
actually crazy to me.
Yeah, people's like responses to a lot of this stuff is just so I don't know. It's like whataboutism at its finest. Like
It's it's a
it's
lot
just
less
crazy.
though. I
And
would say it's a lot less compared to 2016 through 18. Like back then, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing like people saying all lives matter or blue lives matter, but I'm seeing way less of that now. Like this one again like is I don't know, maybe I'm in my own like Twitter bubble or like friend group bubble, but it seems way different.
yeah, there's been so many black people dying to the police. Like, over the past few years, there's been so many people dying. I I'm pretty sure her name is Breonna
Yeah, I
Taylor.
heard
I don't
about
know
that
if you
one.
guys heard about that
Yep.
situation where they literally killed her in her own home, and they were not even in the right place.
I feel like that's not a unique situation. There's another one recently. I can't remember the name, but it's happened a couple of times in recent history. Um, I mean, there's just so many. I mean,
It's
like
so many.
Tamir Rice is another famous one where it's like that 12-year-old kid.
The kid.
He was playing with a toy gun, I think, in a park.
Mhm. Yep.
Some people called the cops saying there's like a juvenile. Allegedly, I think I don't know the details, but like I think the cops knew there was a chance it was a fake gun. But either way, they pulled up within 2 seconds and then and shot him to death. Like within 2 seconds of pulling up. Like if you, I think there's video footage of them like not even trying to de-escalate or nothing.
Don't even get the benefit of the doubt anymore. Just like you're an immediate threat. And that was a little kid. What was he, like, 6th, 7th grade? Like, how big could he have been?
Yeah, it's fucked up. There's something that came up in the news a few years ago that I remember reading that I thought was ridiculous. This is right around the time of the Tamir Rice stuff, or at least in that like I guess grouping of killings, where there was this black chick who was in the National Guard, and she and some of her National Guard people were going to a police station firing range in Florida to I guess just to shoot some guns and practice or whatever. So like they go there and they notice that like the targets uh were basically black people's mugshots, like in the firing range. and they had bullet holes in them. And
What the fuck?
it's even worse that one of the people was her fucking brother, who's alive, who's in jail or whatever. But like, it was a family member. Like these cops are like, I don't know, man.
Shooting at people
Like,
as targets?
they were at the time they were trying to rationale it as like, oh, we're working on like facial like recognition or whatever training.
But you're training them to shoot before there's even a threat. Then
Right.
that's super wrong.
Black criminals.
And it was black people, like it was all black people's mugshots. Like it was weird in Florida.
They could have used a model. They could have used
Anything.
yeah. Anything.
Was let me see if I can find the name so people who are listening. It was so just Google Sergeant Valerie Deant, Deant, and this happened in 2015 apparently. Crazy.
It's interesting to me to see how different our perspectives of the world can be, like based off of the skin of our color. Like not the world, but obviously this country can be based off the skin of our skin. Because just when I saw Trayvon Martin, I didn't think that he was guilty. I didn't even give what's his name, Zimmerman, the benefit of the doubt. Like in my mind, I saw Trayvon Martin as a kid, like somebody that was just walking home from the store. And it sucks that we have so many laws that defend people with guns.
Yeah.
Like people that want to you don't carry a gun on you if you're not prepared to shoot somebody. Like nobody carries a gun on them if they're not prepared to shoot somebody. But the fact that this kid was just on his way,
he had like a bag of Skittles or something, right, in his hoodie.
yeah,
that was it.
Was it raining? I don't even know if it was
Yeah,
raining.
it was. So the story was he was wearing a hoodie. It was dark. It was raining, and the problem with the whole case was that there was like he's not a cop. I think he was like
playing vigilante.
Yeah.
Vigilante, whatever.
Yeah.
He had no like authority.
Right.
Really.
Right. Exactly. So I think the biggest problem was it was a one-sided story. There was no footage. So we got to hear George Zimmerman's version of the story, and what it essentially boiled down to was the way he told the story was he was confronting him because I think he was actually security for the neighborhood or something, or neighborhood watch. I think that's actually I think what it was. It was neighborhood watch, but he had a weapon on him. And the story he said was he was attacked by the kid, and then it got into a tussle, and then he shot him point blank after he feared for his life. And the evidence that they provided to the jury really did corroborate that story, but that was the problem. It's a one-sided story.
Like, how do you have evidence? Just curious.
So again, this is like 8 years ago, but
yeah.
The forensics on the bullet and where the bullet was fired from made sense that they were in close proximity. There was burning, I think, from the muzzle flash on the clothes, so that checked out. George Zimmerman had bodily injuries to his face and other parts of his body, I'm sure. So when you presented that to a court and a jury, is this man guilty without beyond reasonable doubt? I mean, of course he's going to walk because there's no one else to say nah, he's wrong.
Yeah.
I think it was just like a few people who heard something, or not.
Yeah, they were neighbors because it happened outside of people's apartment.
Yep, and people heard things, but I wear a hearing aid, or like, yeah, I saw it, but it was dark and there's no street lights out there.
They weren't paying attention until the gun sound went off.
Right, and I think they were also in a tussle in between some apartments. So I mean, it was, that's the thing. Like people were emotional over it because it if you just heard like, oh yeah, this young kid was killed in self-defense, or yeah, this kid was killed out of malice because he's black, like that's immediately going to rile each side of like whatever you first heard, that's gonna rile you up. But if you took a step back and you look at the evidence, he's gonna walk. Um, it was pretty clear from the start, and at least in my mind, that was the inevitability. But of course, people didn't feel that way, and there was always that doubt. Like he's got 100 pounds on this kid. I don't understand how this was a threat to his life, but if that's what he said, like
An unarmed kid at that.
yeah, exactly. And it was a weird case. Yeah, I don't know. I understand why people are very upset about the outcome, but
Part of me feels like if it was the other way around, like if a black man, Zimmerman size and a white kid,
yes,
Oh, forget
his
it.
the other, yeah, like Trayvon Martin size. If it had been that way around, I don't think that it would have had the same verdict. I really don't. So that's what's the most frustrating to me in this country is I sent Candy a video earlier of this news reporter saying that LeBron James and them I forgot who else was in the car with him. They should just stick to dribbling a basketball instead of sharing their opinions. But when a white athlete was out there,
Drew Brees.
yes, giving his opinion on everything, she was supporting him, and I'm just like, wow, this is the country we live in. Like, where people can be so blatant about it,
Yeah,
about how they feel about the opinions. And she had the nerve to use the word like she said that that Drew what's his name Drew Brees
yeah,
Drew Brees
Mhm.
yep.
that he had a worth as a human being. That's how she defended him, and I'm just like, wow,
Yeah, it's
this
crazy
is
how when something fits your predetermined narrative, how you're willing to
yeah,
like jump through these mental hoops to
it's
prove your
scary.
point.
It's so scary because even if that lady feels like she's not exactly racist, or like it's just like some natural like I don't know. I don't even know what it is. It's just how the way that she was raised is
It's
just
like
like an instinct to her
subconscious, dude.
to like think this way.
Yeah.
She could probably think that she's not racist.
I,
But when comparing the things that she says about black people compared to white people, it's like so blatant.
I think that's like a huge point that I want to bring up is that, like, yeah, sure, we can all look at like freaking white supremacists and neo Nazis and KKK members, and it's very easy for like everyone to be like, oh yeah, screw those racists. They're like,
When they're open
they're
about
open
it,
about it,
when
right?
they're proud about who they are.
But I think what is like honestly more kind of like almost more dangerous, more sinister is like when you have people
Closet
like,
racist.
yeah, who are like just kind of like not even
They're
like
hiding.
aware, right? They don't even freaking know like what they're saying, and they have that sort of unconscious bias. I don't know. I think that's a
And they
huge
don't
problem.
understand until somebody checks them, and they have to actually listen to the things that they say about themselves. Because I like maybe that lady, whenever that video was posted of her on Twitter, maybe she was like, "Wow, I can't believe I said that. That's how I feel," and maybe she didn't understand that that was that was fucked up to say. Like I don't know how else to put it.
I will
Like
I will say that that definitely is a thing. So, uh, like personally, me being as white as the snow falls, as I would call it, like I'm German, Scottish, Irish, and I got a little bit of Scandinavian in me. So, I'm naturally I don't have hair right now because genetics, but when I had hair,
Looks good. Looks
I
good.
was blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm pretty damn white. And I come from the Midwest, so the I come from like a pretty rural. There's cornfields from my the house I grew up in, maybe a mile down the street at the most. Um, the closest neighbor to the house I grew up in, you could barely see, and that's my hometown. Um, I went to school with literally, I'm not even exaggerating. There was one black family that lived in my town of like somewhere between 25 and 30,000, I'm pretty sure. Um,
Jesus.
yeah, and that spans all generations too. So that's like babies to old people. I'm pretty confident that the community I grew up in, it was 30,000 people. We had like one black family that lived in town. Um, so growing up through school and high school, it was not uncommon to hear racist slurs all the time. It would be, that's just how it was. And to me at that time, that was normal. That was something that I grew up in and I became normalized to. Um, And then you fast forward, I'm 19, I joined the military. I go to Texas for, basic military training. And the dorm chief in my basic training unit was a black dude. And now I'm, having to I guess commune with and talk to on a regular basis and take orders from African American male. So to me, it was like mild culture shock. And to someone on the outside who's from city and they're used to it, to other like people of color, they might look at me and be like, "Well, this guy's obviously uncomfortable. He may even be racist." And it's like that's not really fair to me. That's where I come from. Like I didn't control where I was born. So I think there's like a common understanding where everyone should really stop responding to people's opinions with equal yet opposite hatred, because you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to change that person's mind because that's what they know. That is literally all they know. And, vice versa, same exact. So it's really hard because you're literally trying to break what someone has come to know, or conversely, what you could be doing is make them understand. Give empathy to someone. Understand that they don't know better. So how do I
Right.
make them
I
understand?
I agree in a way. Um, I hate when I see somebody is ignorant but not necessarily racist, and
Sure.
they get instead of somebody teaching them, they get hate and they get canceled, and they don't
Get
even have a
canceled.
chance.
Yeah.
They don't even have a chance to try to understand, and at that point, they're already so pissed that they don't even want to understand anymore, and I feel like we run a lot of people away from wanting to understand, like, because we've already been hateful towards them, like, they don't wanna communicate with us, they don't wanna hear what we have to say anymore, like, we
Yep.
don't wanna hear what they have to say, and it's if we wanna be heard, I do unfortunately, you do have to listen to people if you wanna be heard yourself, and
Yep.
I don't know, man. I just wish there was. I'm not saying that everybody's hateful, of course, not everybody's hateful, there are people that teach. Um, People grew up in environments where they never had the opportunity to learn about certain things. Of course, like, probably where you grew up at, uh, Black history probably wasn't a huge thing
No, it
in
really
in
wasn't.
in your in your area, and when they do teach Black history, they kinda make it seem like that happened forever ago, like, everything that happened, civil rights, everything. Well, by the time you were in high school, like, I don't know, what year were you in high school? Just curious.
Oh, 04.
Oh, 04,
Old man.
okay, the school stopped being segregated in, what was it,
Wait, hold up.
1960s?
It's just 1954. I just googled it. 1954.
1954?
Yeah,
1954
Brown versus
segregation
Boer.
ended?
Was it a federal thing though, or was that up to states to desegregate?
I thought that
Uh,
was federal. I thought that was a Supreme Court case.
Okay, then it was
Yeah, it
54
was a
across the
Brown
board.
Brown versus the Board of Education.
That's right. Oh my god, yeah, you're right.
Civil
So
Rights Act
so
of
50 years on the
64.
nose.
Yeah, of 64 superseded all state and local laws requiring segregation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they really nailed it
so
in the head at
by the time that
64.
you were in high school, it had only been, what, 40 years?
50.
40 years since people were allowed well, since Black people were allowed to, um, have the same rights as white people.
Yeah.
But I feel like when they teach us that in school, they teach it to us in a way that makes us feel like we have been over this for a while, and it has not been very long. And so
Yep.
when people speak on Black history or speak on the position that Black people are now in this country, um, how, a lot of Black people are unemployed, not very educated, um, they a lot of Black people are living in poverty, um, and when you think about when segregation ended, it makes me wonder what people think happened, whenever segregation ended, like, we weren't allowed to work the jobs with white people still. We weren't allowed to go to schools with them still, and when we did, we were hated, and we weren't allowed to move into neighborhoods with white families. So, we were put in this position where we had to survive off of the bare minimum, and it hasn't even been 100 years yet. We were put in a position to survive off of the bare minimum, and we've made it to where we are today, but it's still, in my opinion, not enough.
Yeah.
And like, in my, I just don't understand. I guess I've always struggled to understand where white people don't see that they have a privilege. They've never had to fight for rights in their entire life.
I think
They don't
people
have to fear when they get pulled over by the police officers. And Black people were still brutalized after segregation ended. It was like, I don't know. I'm just, like, so frustrated just thinking about it all. I just watched the movie Harriet. I told Candy I watched the movie Harriet the other
that's a
night,
heavy movie.
and I honestly, like, as fucked up as it sounds, I forgot how bad slavery was because I don't think about it every day. I didn't have to live
You
through it. My
shouldn't have
parents
to.
didn't have to live through it. Yeah, but I forgot about how fucking bad slavery was. Like, these people were treated like animals. Like, they were taught to, like, like, the pastors taught the black preachers taught the other black slaves, like, using the Bible, that they were meant to be slaves, and they were meant to serve their masters. They were forced to teach each other these things. They couldn't read, they couldn't write. Like, I I don't know, that their babies were sold away, they were beat, brutalized, body parts cut off when they tried to run away. Like, I honestly forgot how bad it was, and our ancestors did most of the heavy lifting, but this wasn't even that long ago. Harry Tubman died in 1913. That was the same century that I was born in. Harry Tubman died right before my grandparents were born, and she was a slave.
Yeah.
It's just so weird to think about the perspective of, like, my perspective of history, and if mine is this way, then how, like, the people that weren't even taught, like, Black history very deeply, like, I can only imagine what their perspective is. I don't know, man. I'm just I'm just shaken up by
I don't blame you,
by
dude.
it hasn't been that long,
Yeah.
but people expect things, like, people are surprised when they see racism in this country. We haven't even had a chance to get rid of it, really. It's just been like, "Okay, here's your rights. Let's move on. Let's do what we're doing, but, like, quieter now. We can't be obvious about it anymore." That's what it feels like to me when people, like, I grew up in a really small town. I guess, did I give my background on, I don't know, being Black? Um, I grew up in a really small town. We had, like, 3 or 4 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school, so everybody ended up in the same high school, but, um, the Black people in my school could probably fill up 1 lunch table compared to all of the, lunch tables. We had, like, maybe 3 Asian people, a couple of Hispanic people, but, the majority white. It's where my dad grew up in. Um, we have, like, Civil War battlefields where I'm from. We took field trips to Jamestown every single year.
Jeez.
The Jamestown settlement, yeah, we love to see that history. Um, it's just like, it's so normalized. Um, I I've been called the N-word with the hard R plenty of times on the bus. The white kids used to, like, fuck with my hair, and, like, they would, like, literally mess my hair up every day before school. They would print out racist jokes and read them to me in the back of the bus, and obviously there's nothing I could fucking do about it but sit there and, like, wait for my turn to get off the bus. I was the first one, the last one off every day. So, there's, like, no getting away from it, but, like, who do I tell? Like, who's gonna believe that these kids are doing this in the back of the bus, and do I wanna get bullied more? So, like, I grew up in a place where it's just like, you just, like, walk it off, like, you don't you don't make a big deal about it, 'cause, you're outnumbered anyways, and you kinda just, like, hope it doesn't happen every day. So, for me, when I see things happening, like, racist shit happening in this world, it's not a surprise to me, and I guess I'm a little bit desensitized to it because I did grow up that way, and I know a lot of people didn't have to deal with that. And I remember, I guess like one of my most shocking moments of like racism was when I was sitting at the lunch table when I was in it was my junior year. I was sitting at the lunch table with these white people. I wouldn't even say they were my friends. And there was like a rowdy, like the black table was being rowdy. And one of the white guys looks up and he says, "God, I hate black people." And then he looks at me and like he's shocked that I'm black and I'm sitting there and he was like, "Well, not you. You're different than them." And I was just like,
The fuck is that supposed to mean?
Don't make
yeah,
general statements like that. You fuck.
yeah, and I was just like, "Wow."
Jesus.
Like this is what I got a glimpse of what it was like for a second when I'm not around, when a black person's not around, like what people are saying, and I almost wonder like how the conversation would have went and if I wasn't there.
Y-
But it's just insane to me. Like that was such a like natural thing for him to say that it came out when I was sitting there.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's just scary, dude, that people have these thoughts and nobody's there to check them. Because a lot of people are like even if okay, you're hearing the statements now. And it's not enough to not be racist. You have to be anti-racist. And there's a lot of people who believe they're not racist, but they're also not anti-racist. So they let people go around saying things that they shouldn't be saying because it would be too uncomfortable for them to check it. Like be like, hey, you shouldn't talk about somebody like that. You shouldn't say things like that. And even me as a black person, I was uncomfortable checking that when I was sitting there and I was like, what, 17, 16 or 17? I was uncomfortable checking it. So I can imagine if somebody maybe not even black that it wouldn't even offend. If it doesn't hurt your feelings, then do you check it? Or have you always Oh, I want to ask you guys. I
Mm.
mean, I know it's not my podcast, but I want to ask
Yeah,
you guys like
ask
do you
us.
guys
Yeah, interview us, please,
do you
Jayla.
guys have a problem checking things when it doesn't necessarily relate to you? Like if you see somebody saying something that they shouldn't be saying about people, I do you guys have a problem checking or you just like, "Oh, that's nothing to do with me. I don't want to start any problems. Let me just go on about my day. That person's just a piece of shit."
Hmm.
What do you think?
That's a good question. I think I at least like with my friends, I surround myself with people who like are empathetic and compassionate and open-minded. So thankfully, like I don't usually need to check like behavior or like language. And if I do, like I'm able to have a conversation about it. So I love my friends for that reason. Um, I think like one of the conversations that I had to have, like a reckoning in high school, was like the use of the word gay as like a negative or like a slur.
Ugh,
So that
I
was
hate that.
like an example of like when I personally worked to change my speech, like with my friends, because we realized like the language that we were using. Um, but I think in my life, the one place where I probably could be better is with like the older generations in my family. I've family in the South, and they I wouldn't say that they are racist people. And I think this also speaks to the reporter we were talking about earlier, where it's hard for people to picture themselves as racist because usually there's imagery brought up of Klan members or lynchings, and it's just like
Like
that's
extreme.
yeah. So that's like objective racism. It's like measurable, whereas really I wish I knew the name of the guy. He did a great speech on how actually racism is more of a subjective thing. It's not a bone in your body that you either have or you don't have. It's measured in every action from moment to moment. So you can do something racist and not be a racist person. And that's, I think, how I describe some of the actions of my family in the South. Where sometimes, they're perfectly like cordial and kind. I remember I visited them with one of my best friends who's black in high school. And they were just so nice to him and he was part of the family. But then he would leave and they would just say something nasty. Um, about whatever, like not about him, but just generally using hurtful language. And it's hard to correct that. You honestly, it's so uncomfortable that you just kind of wait it out. And I think that's where the silence being equivalent to violence comes from. Because by not correcting it, like you may as well be perpetuating it.
Like yeah, I feel that.
I definitely feel that one. Like,
It feels, I don't know, like you have to be a cookie cutter like black person for some people. Like it's just like like if you're, I guess the way I can compare it is like a racist person can enjoy watching the NFL and seeing their favorite sports player, but then they could see a black person walking down the street and their pants are sagging lower than they would like, and then they have something to say about it, right? So
Mhm.
it's like you almost like it's I wouldn't say, but I still see that as racist, but you have to, I guess, like I guess please them in a certain way, or like I don't even know how to put that. I don't even know how to say it, but you have to play into their role of what they think a black person should be, and when you're not that, then I guess you're the I hate to say it, the N word to them, I guess, like, and I see so many people when they get mad, like not so many people, but like a lot of videos on that are posted on social media when black people are arguing with white people, and you see them say the N word to them, and it almost makes me wonder, like, is that how many people, like, say stuff like that behind closed doors? Like, have these opinions that they, like, keep to themselves until they literally can't anymore, they're so pissed that it just comes out.
I think the amount of people who do exactly what you just described is much higher than most people would like to admit. Um, like I was saying before, especially in the hometown where I come from, it was it was not uncommon, and no one batted an eye because you know it's just you're not offending anyone in the room. It like
And it becomes a joke, kind of.
it not even kind of. It doesn't kind of
Yeah.
become a joke. It is a joke. It's like this holier than thou, but okay, can you explain why? Well, it's that's just how it is what the response, and they don't think like, well, maybe it's because you know, people of color have been put down since the founding of this country. Maybe it's because you have been given generations of wealth passed down to you through inheritance because your forefathers before you, your grandfather worked his ass off to get what he was, but he also did it because he had the help helping him do that.
Yeah.
And then we got past that where there is no slavery anymore. But like the damage was done at that point, and ever since then we've seen the accumulation of wealth in this entire country, and quite frankly in most parts of the world, just bubble up to the top 1% of most everyone, and the vast majority of those people are white people, and it's like, well,
So I'd celebrated when somebody white makes it up there.
yeah, and
Like, they
it's
make a big deal out of it because it's not normal.
yeah, and I'm not saying that like everyone doesn't work equally as hard, but if you think that being white in this country or anywhere else in the world doesn't give you some sort of little leg up, people look at you a little bit differently. I've experienced it in my life. I've done and gotten away with shit that I'm confident if I was black, no, I'm getting a ticket or I'm going to jail overnight or something, I can absolutely say that, and it's just if you can't at least be honest with yourself and those around you who are trying to have this conversation and say, yeah, that's a thing. That is true. You're right. You know what, Poner? You're right. That's a thing. I don't know what to say to you anymore. Like you need to step outside. You need to actually think about what it's like to be someone else for a day. Like actually put some brain power behind it, because so many people in this country lack empathy, and it's the thing that I always come
Yeah.
back to. It's like you can't imagine what it's like to be in their shoes, and no one seems to look at it that way. And then on top of it, like one of the hardest things that I could imagine, it's like you didn't come into this world and get a select screen where it's like, what color would you like to be when you're born? Like you just are that's who you are. I am who I am just because that's how nature intended it. So then for you to get like a bad role essentially because civil rights are fucked, like that's even worse. Like that's just got to feel terrible. And I can't imagine, and I can't pretend to imagine like what that must feel like, but I don't know, like people just need to stop being absolute dicks and just listen to each other. Just absolutely just sit down, have a conversation with someone who is not who like someone you're uncomfortable talking to. Just go talk to someone
Yeah.
about this.
I think
I wish it was that simple.
It's not
I
though,
really
and
do.
it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
I feel like when people hear like stuff like what you're saying, Poner, and then like when people hear the word white privilege and stuff, and honestly, as an Asian guy, I feel like we have our own privileges and stuff, but I feel like a common argument that I hear from people who don't believe in white privilege is that like, oh man, like I've had to work my ass off, I had a hard life, like those people, like that's not what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, of course, like
Nobody's taking that away from you.
yeah, like no one's taking that away from you. It's something else. It's like a social privilege. We're not saying like you didn't have a tough life or you didn't live like poverty is another whole nother thing, right? Like that's like a whole nother thing to tackle. But I feel like as far as like specifically that term like white privilege is talking less so about like how difficult your life was because of like economical reasons and more like social reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like the example that I like the most that I saw a white guy use was like he said that if I was walking down the street with my TV in my hands, nobody would call the cops on me and they wouldn't assume that I was stealing. But if I was a black man walking
Dude.
down the street with the TV in my hands, the cops will be called on me immediately and people would be thinking that I was stealing the TV. And I was just like, that's honestly so true. Like,
That's that example. If people think it's like a hyperbole or like an exaggeration, I think a really good show to watch is What Would You Do? I think you've watched.
yeah, I watch that on my stream all the
Dude,
time
that
with
shit's
my
eye opening, man.
I literally cry every time I watch it. It's so
It's
sad.
eye opening.
So sad.
There was one episode where they had, I don't know if it was on that particular show or another show like it, but they had like a bike set up in the park. It was chained to like a light post, and they had like a white person have some pliers trying to break the thing, and like barely anyone said anything, like barely. And when they did, the white guy was just like, "Oh yeah, I just lost my keys," and like they're like, "Oh okay," but then like when they had the black person do it, like everyone was like on their like say at least saying something or giving looks, or if not like on the phone like calling like the cops. Like it was weird and it's eye opening. I don't know.
It's sad. It's so sad.
Reminds me of that guy that was bird watching, and
Oh my god,
I'm surprised that hasn't come up. But I
Yeah.
feel
dude. Sorry.
that's like that's a good example of like what white privilege does mean. Like it's maybe not necessarily like economic, but it was just so shocking to me that the white lady who's on the phone calling the cops on this black guy was like, she was so explicit in like using what is usually like a subtext language. She was like, police, I, a white female, am being accosted by a black man, like do your thing, cops. Like it was as if like all the subtext that's usually like beneath it was just so overt. And it was just shocking to see that.
I feel like that is a perfect example of someone who probably doesn't think she is racist, like
Yeah.
KKK racist.
Probably doesn't think she has
Exactly.
privilege either. She probably doesn't think she has any privilege.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean,
but she knows that she can call the police. But like I feel like people don't connect it to that. They think that you're trying to take away their hard work, but when you're really saying is like you could really play any situation to your advantage just because of the color of your skin. Like you could call the cops and say you're being attacked when you're not.
Yeah.
And when they get there, they're gonna be like, "Lady, you can't do that." They're gonna arrest her for making a false report. they're just gonna tell her not to do it again, and then she's gonna get to go home, which is what happened. She didn't get charges.
Oh, I think she ended up getting like five. She was an investment banker, and I think
Well, she
she.
got fired because of social media, not because of the police officers.
Right. Well, I'm glad. I'm just saying, I'm glad
That's
she
true.
did get fired. But yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, if the guy
Like, he didn't
wasn't
get
recording.
arrested.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
Imagine.
Another
Like-
story.
He could have died. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, it could have gone either way, but he really could have died. There's a 50-50 chance here that if the police showed up and he got upset that she had called the police, they would see him as the aggressor, and she would be over there. He hurt me. He hit me. And like, she could have really said anything she wanted to say, and they would have believed it. But you don't have to have any proof anymore. You just have to call the police, and they show up and see a black man, and that's all. That's all you need to do. Your job's done as a white woman calling the cops. Like, that's it. And it even goes back to um Emmett Till's death, where he was apparently he flirted with the white woman.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
He told people that he flirted with her, and they ended up killing him. And it goes back to what is that Netflix? I forgot what the Netflix documentary was, but a white woman was raped, and a bunch of black kids got put in jail for it, and they didn't even do it, and
the
they were found.
five. They were
Yeah.
called
Yeah,
The Central Park
something-
5.
the Central
yeah,
Park
Central Park 5.
Yeah.
And just to it's been an ongoing thing in history, not only in those situations, but when a white girl has sex with a black guy, somebody finds out about it, and she says that she was raped, and it's that easy. She just says she's raped, and that's all. That's all she needs to say, and a black man's going to jail for it. I'm not saying that all situations are false when somebody is saying that they get raped, but people know when they can take advantage of a situation. And it has happened a lot in history, and it makes me wonder how many times it's happened that we don't even know about because
Yeah.
they just get away with it. Like another black guy in jail who's batting an eye. There's the system, in my opinion, is built to work against black people. So another black guy in jail is not going to turn somebody's head. The only thing that has been turning heads is black people literally dying in the street or dying in police
And
custody.
we can record it,
Yeah, and anything being that's the one thing that I can say is super huge about social media now is it's getting the message across to us without the media interfering and putting a message in our head about and putting like obviously the media is here to control us. It's so clear to see even during what's happening now with the protesting. Some stations are playing police being attacked. Some stations are playing protesters being attacked. But of course, it's all used to divide us and make us like hate one side. Gives the news something to work with. But actually seeing what's on social media, like people recording things on their own phones and like there being no interference, no middleman of getting us a message is I feel like what has definitely changed this country. Um the fact I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, why are you recording instead of helping?" Especially if we want to get back to talking about the George Floyd situation. There was a lady recording George Floyd being murdered, and um some people would ask her. They actually interviewed her like going back to the spot, and she was like obviously a mess. Like she was like an emotional mess when she was there. And imagine if she had stepped in to try
Dude,
to
she could have been
stop.
shot.
She could have died herself, and if she didn't get killed, she would have been in jail. And he still could have died. But it's just like there's almost nothing you can do. The most that you can do sometimes is just record and give somebody have somebody's truth on camera, because if she didn't record, what would they have said? Oh, the police weren't wearing body cams, and there was no cameras at the scene. None of the stores around had they would have found that there's it's so
They've
easy
been
to
turning off their
manipulate
body
things
cams
like
too
that.
with protesters.
If I feel like if a police turns off his body cam, he should automatically be guilty. There's no reason to turn off your body cam if you're not doing anything wrong. If a cop really wants to have evidence that he didn't do anything wrong, why would he turn off his body cam, in my opinion? Or why is it not on?
Yeah.
So I feel like it should be a law to where police have to have their body cam on at all time, or have a body cam on them at all times.
Yeah, and I think it goes both ways. It also protects the officer, you
It
know?
protects the officer if he is like being honest. Like there's no reason why it shouldn't be on recording then. Or I don't know, man. It's just so frustrating. But to think that there were so many people standing around who were afraid to step in because they knew that they could lose their life if they did, or they would end up in jail if they did, even if they weren't breaking the law. And I heard that there was one of the police officers that was there that was actually a rookie who actually told I don't know how to pronounce his name, Officer Chauvin to get off of um his neck. He told him to stop and he didn't listen to him. But he was also the rookie, so it's like, obviously, like, nobody's gonna listen to the rookie, whatever the rookie's saying, but, at least it's good to know that one of the police officers stepped up and said something, but it was actually I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures of the officers that were arrested
It's like an
in
Asian
the murder.
guy. I only saw the Asian guy, right? He was like
There's an
blocking.
Asian guy. I think there's 2 Asian guys, but the one of the Asian guys looks black. He looks like he's kinda black. I don't know if you guys saw the picture.
Yeah, I
He's
saw a
bald
picture. He
with,
has a
like,
beard.
beard. Yeah, but his last name seems like it's Asian. I forgot what it was, but yeah, they're not even white. One's white, and the other 2 are, I'm a minority. I don't know what race they both are, but
And I think
it
there was
was
one
interesting to
other
see.
white officer, I think, as well in
Yeah,
custody.
the murderer is white, the 2 one of the bystanders was white, and that guy was the one that spoke up and said no twice, but obviously he didn't take any actions and, like, push him off. Like, if I see somebody dying on the street, I'm not gonna ask politely, "Can you get off of somebody's neck?" if I have the authority to remove you from this person's neck, right?
I
Uh,
think I think the ultimate, um, maybe not. This isn't the right thing to say. Like the ultimate form of racism, but the ultimate test for the human race to just find out if whether or not you've eradicated racism is if you see someone that you've never seen before, the first thing that you look at and you say to yourself is, "Oh, they're black. Oh, they're Asian." Like that
mhm,
should not be the first thing that comes to your mind, you
Skin
know?
color.
Yeah,
mhm.
because it shouldn't matter. It does not matter. I don't understand how that's still a thing. Like, and I know, like we were saying earlier, like we're not that far from, desegregation.
That mindset. Like, people are raising the people okay, with slavery, with civil rights, segregation and everything. The reason why people were fighting is because there was a substantial amount of people that did not want it to change. Like, if it was agreed upon with everybody, yeah, it's totally wrong that we have slaves. It's so wrong that people cannot like we're separated by race. Like, black people have the shit in the stick. They can't eat where we eat. They can't sleep where we sleep. They can't go to school where we go to school. They can't do anything. They don't get paid like us. Like, there was a substantial amount of people that were fighting for black people to not get rights, to not like be free. So I don't understand where people think that when all this ended, whenever we won our rights, we won our freedom, that the people that were fighting against us weren't raising their kids to believe what they believe in, and their kids raising their kids to believe what they believe in. And honestly, if that happened twice, we're here where we are now. Like it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of parallels between. I mean, I was talking to Boom about it, but like it was a few days ago. I was like, dude, I wonder how much of a parallel there is between the stuff that we're going through today, in the 2000s versus like the civil rights movements. Because I'm willing to bet that like there's like for example with the protests, right? There's a lot of or not even with these protests, but let's just give an example of like Kaepernick, right? With him kneeling, there were a bunch of people against that. Um, and it just seems like every time there's any sort of protest or anything, there's always this other side that's like, they're not like I guess they don't try to come off as like Ku Klux Klan members or anything, but they definitely have this weird like I don't agree with your methods or anything of protest. And that funny enough, I did like a little bit of research. I can't believe I didn't realize this before, but MLK actually like wrote about this back in like 63 about this idea of like the quote unquote white moderate who would I'm paraphrasing it. Basically he says like it's a type of people who would say like, I agree with you in what your cause is, but I can't agree with like the methods of what you're doing. Like people who are more devoted to, if I were to quote, more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. So like I feel like I'm seeing a lot of that shit like today. You know what I mean? I
Where
don't know.
people aren't agreeing with the way that people are going about trying to be heard and they get the change that they want.
Yeah, like just basically, I mean, yeah, basically like, I mean, his example, MLK's example was that like he basically realized that black people's greatest, he calls a stumbling block, isn't the Ku Klux Klan, is not like any like super crazy racist group. It's actually like more so like the quote unquote moderates who like, um,
Are afraid to rock the boat,
yes,
even
thank
though
you.
even though they know that there's something wrong. They
Like
would prefer the status quo.
Yep.
it's so funny how outspoken people are about the protesting and the looting, um, and all this stuff happening and the way that people are going about getting the change they want. But when they have the fucking Ku Klux Klan rallying, walking down the street, these are the same people that are turning their eyes and are not saying, "Oh, I don't think that you should be going about it this way. I don't think you should hate people like this." They're the ones that are just ignoring it. Well, it has nothing to do with them. They're not hurting anybody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's so insane to me
What?
that what?
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, so kind of in that same vein is people who are pointing to the protests, but they're focusing on the rioters and the looters
And things
who
Yeah. Oh,
burning.
I hate
who
that.
are very upset, who have been dealing with this their whole lives. Um, and I'm not condoning that action whatsoever, but at the same time, I always go back to like you have to empathize. Like I'm not mad that people are rioting and looting because nothing in this country has ever fucking changed by being like oh
Peaceful.
please give me rights. Please don't look at me this way. Like no, burn it down. America was founded and part of we didn't want to be taxed anymore by taxation without representation. George Washington went across the Delaware River in the dead of night on Christmas and fucking slaughtered people. Like that's the shit that changes things. That's how America was born, and that's how things change. And that's just a fact of life. People, you have to bring people to a certain point where it's like, okay, we've lost a lot in this battle. So what do you want? Bring us, like, actually bring someone to the table, sit them down, and say, this is what we would like to have changed. That's how you bring about change in any societal issue, whether it's race, whether it's um, basic human rights. Like you look at a dictatorship. A dictatorship stays a dictatorship until there's rebellion and there's literal war. There's blood being spilled on the streets. And again, that's terrible. That's horrible. I don't think anyone should ever condone that kind of
Agreed.
that kind of like
Yeah.
violent action against their fellow man. And it's fucking terrible that it comes to that sometimes. But that's a way of life. That's a fact of life. That is nature. That is who we are as humans. And if
Yeah.
you can't get your mind around that, then I don't know. And I will like to say, since we're on the topic, like there are very, very good cops out there. No one should be just blanket hating the police. If you're doing that, you're fucking wrong. Um, and it just goes. I don't know. Like you have to just pick the bad apples out of the bin, and we need to do that. We need to stop generalizing. We need to stop saying um, all cops are bad. That's not true. If you
There's a
say
lot of good
that,
cops. I had a lot of
I
good
feel like
experiences.
I've
there
got friends that are cops.
there are a
Boom's
lot
got
of
friends that are cops. Like if people say that shit, like fuck you.
there are a lot
Basically,
of good police. I wanted to be a police officer myself, but then I realized that I didn't want to do it at
same.
the same time. But I will say there are good police officers that see bad police officers and they don't do anything about it.
Mm.
Like just because you're not that cop being that bad person, and even though it would make things uncomfortable for you, but like somebody has to say something. Like people, obviously, people are using the bad apple in the bunch. One bad apple ruins them all. And honestly, it's true when you see these things happening. And just like in the case of George Floyd's death, there's cops standing around. There's there was 3 other able-bodied men that
Just
had the
letting
same
it happen.
authority that the cop on the dude's neck had, on George Floyd's neck had, and they let it happen. Like, they could've physically removed this man from George Floyd's neck, but they let it happen, and that is just a more extreme example of what I feel like happens every day in every
Sure.
police department. So, yeah, I do believe there are good people out there that are police officers, but until just the same way, it's not the same to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist. They have to be anti-bad policing. They can't let it happen in front of them and just go home and go to fucking sleep at night like it didn't happen because it doesn't affect them. It's not fair. So it's like
Yeah.
the only people that can say something are the ones that are going to bed at night. Like we can't get into the police system and we can't pick out every bad cop, but they see each other every day. They know who the fucked up officers are. But at the same time, it's above them. Even if they report somebody, they could easily just throw that shit in the trash. Whoever is above them can easily throw that shit in the trash. They don't give a fuck. As long as this person is making the arrest and meeting their quotas, which I feel like they shouldn't have. Shouldn't have a quota of how many people you give tickets to or how many people you arrest or whatever. You shouldn't have a
Right.
quota on that anyways. But at the end of the day, it's always that's above me. Like even if you do make your request. So I feel like the system is set up to where like the people who are at the top can pretty much control whatever is at the bottom. And if there's bad apples, that even if you say, "Hey, boss, there's a bad apple here," they can let that bad apple stay there. And now you are just the person that knows there's a bad apple and you can't do anything about it. So I feel like it can go either way. I don't support the hate on the streets of the police officers. I feel like anybody should be innocent until proven guilty. Um, but the showing people the same hate that you wish that you weren't shown on a daily basis is not going to help change anything. It's just going to make maybe there was a good cop out there who went out to control the riots and you're spitting in his face, calling him a pig, and now maybe he doesn't know how he fucking feels anymore because all the people are hating him because of the job that he has.
You
And
just radicalize that person.
it's funny because the first people that we're gonna call when somebody's breaking into our house is the police, and yeah, the police are meant to serve us, and they will show up, and they will arrest whoever broke into your house, and you will be safe, but I do believe that I
It just gotta be police accountability.
it's
That's
so
all. You know.
complicated, and I just wish there weren't so many laws protecting police killing people,
Yeah, they have a
because
lot of leeway or
yeah, they have a lot of
loopholes, whatever.
the thing is, police are trained to use the least amount of force necessary to stop somebody, not to kill somebody. They don't shoot to kill. They shoot to stop a threat. So,
Actually, it
well, when
uh,
in court,
what
when a police officer shoots somebody, they don't shoot to kill because if they say that they meant to kill
mm,
somebody, then they will go to jail.
I'm gonna have to disagree there. If an officer pulls his weapon, you, like they are shooting to kill, and
I'm not saying that they're not shooting to kill. I'm saying they're taught like from when I went through my training for like working for the US Capitol Police, they say you shoot to stop the threat, you're not shooting to kill. Of course, if somebody's threatening you, the easiest way to stop the threat is to kill them. But when you're in court, you don't say that you were shooting to kill somebody because then that's murder. But
mm,
if you shoot to stop a threat and the threat is stopped, but it happens to be that the person is dead, then the person died from you trying to stop a threat. But also, there's supposed to be ways to prove like you have to make sure that you're using a reasonable amount of force when killing somebody as well too. Like if a cop is arresting me and he's fucking 400 pounds and I'm unarmed and he shoots me, then he can't prove that he used a reasonable amount of force on me. So apparently, not apparently, but cops are supposed to use a reasonable amount of force when, um, I guess detaining somebody or arresting them
Yeah.
or stopping a threat. And there are a lot of like I forgot who posted it. It was, but there was a post about how they're gonna try to like amend whatever immunity cops have. There's some sort of immunity that cops have when they kill somebody. But I don't I obviously I'm not very educated on like the laws around like police and like how they can get out of situations whenever they kill somebody. But there's usually a reason why cops can get away with just losing their job after they murder somebody is because they are protected. And in a lot of situations, um some cops are freaked out in certain situations, and I don't believe that every time a police officer, especially white, has killed a black person has been racist, but I do believe that they get away with it for reasons that I don't agree with. Because the same way that I can accidentally kill somebody and I would go to jail for manslaughter is the same way that I think that if somebody accidentally does something, like killing somebody unarmed and being like, "Oh, I thought he had a gun." I don't think that's fair.
Yeah. That I don't think that should fly either. It reminds me of this video that Philando Castile, I think was his name. He was like this black dude who was like
Hmm.
got pulled over, just a regular traffic stop. And I remember watching this video where where this guy's like he's fucking bleeding. Like he's wearing a white shirt or like a light colored shirt. I think it was a white shirt, and it was just like blood everywhere. And apparently what happened was that like the cop pulled him over. And Castile told this cop, he's like, "Yo, I got a registered firearm, just so you know, but I'm gonna get my license." So he was reaching for his wallet or license, and I think this
Yeah.
cop just like shot him, and he was like bleeding out because he was shot, I think, in the stomach or something. So he didn't like die immediately, and they recorded everything. Like I think his girlfriend was with him,
Yep. She's in the
and
passenger seat,
it's
and there was a
horrific.
baby in the back seat, actually.
It's horrific. Like that shit. I feel like if anything comes out of this, and I know we got a long ways to go, but the bare minimum that I hope comes out of this is like police accountability. You know what I mean? Like
Training them better. Like, yeah, you can
train them
actually ask for their
better,
wallet and then
accountability.
assume they're reaching for a gun and then shoot them and be like, I thought he was reaching for a gun." Like
Yeah.
like, it's just so crazy to me that that will fly in court and they will get away with it. By some stretch of imagination, I don't know how it works. I'm not in the courtrooms, but
It's it's
somehow
it's because it's reasonable doubt. That's
but you
literally how it
but
works.
they're following your demands. You're
Yep.
demanding like, it's just so the way that the law is just so fucked right now. And even though the cop may not have meant to kill him or whoever it is that they kill, even though they may not have meant to kill someone, I still feel like they should be just like I feel like if they were held accountable, they would be less likely to kill somebody because
Yeah,
they
it's in the
know that
back of their heads.
there's a consequence.
Consequence.
Like, you're handing somebody a gun and making them feel like there's little to no consequence if you pull this gun out and you shoot somebody. If you feel a little bit scared, just shoot them. Like, there are other ways to deal with it, and, like, yeah, I've seen videos of police officers where maybe they did give somebody, the benefit of the doubt, and they did get shot. But that I feel like that probably happens less often than the other way around where, like, they don't give somebody the benefit of the doubt and they shoot them. I feel like when you have a job where you're signing up to be a police officer, you're accepting the reality of your life is in danger, but you chose this job. Not like, in order for I know my life's in danger, but if I feel a little bit threatened, I'm just gonna shoot. It's just like you have to train these officers to understand, like, you're choosing a job that puts your life in danger, but you have to make the best choices while you're in the situation, and choosing your life over potentially somebody else's, like, there's a 50-50 chance, like, I just don't think that it's fair. Like, the people that are supposed to be protecting you, that see you as a natural threat because you're black, you can grab your wallet and still get shot.
When you sign up to do it, whether it's military or whether it's police, you need to make that equation in your head that you may find yourself in one of those situations and you don't know how you're going to react. Some some people piss themselves. Um, some people just freak out and start shooting. Some people do the opposite and they run away. Like, and there's a lot of people out there, and this is the thing that really fucking pisses me off about America. Um, in general is there's a lot of people who act real fucking tough. They'll sit there and they'll hold a weapon and they'll say like, "Yeah, come on my property, I dare you." It's like you don't know how you're going to react if someone actually does that and they're holding the same fucking weapon that you're holding in your hands. Like you do not understand what it's like. Um and I think the only other people that can like really see or understand rather what I'm saying are people who have actually had to use their service weapon. People who have actually had to shoot back at someone who's shooting at them. It is it will change your life forever. Um, and that's I don't know, like
It goes to show
it,
you like how people like I feel like police officers aren't trained enough.
you can't train them for that.
I mean, I know you can't train them for that, but I feel like
Right.
they could have better training. Like
Yeah, no, like that's good.
getting them to
Honestly,
as close to that point as possible
yes.
is the most realistic thing for me, but obviously it would cost more money and more time.
That and that's honestly that's exactly where I was going with this is we need to do better as a society to train and prepare our police officers for that thing. Like that's why
Do you think there should be a certain age where like a like I wouldn't say like obviously you can't measure somebody's maturity, but do you think that people should be able to as soon as they I don't know, I know that you probably don't you have to be like 21 to be a police officer?
no, you can be 18.
Oh god. I just feel like
18's kind of young.
yeah,
You can join the military. You can literally you can
I just
actually get a
feel like
waiver and join the Marines with a rap sheet
there's
at 18 and go to war and literally go die for your country.
if there's an age limit on becoming certain certain like positions, like getting certain positions in the government, there's an age limit on that, and you're not even fucking carrying a weapon, trying to defend some protect and serve. I just feel like, man, a kid of course a kid is gonna they think that somebody's gonna grab a gun. Like they never been through anything in their fucking life. Like their first instinct, especially if they have a gun on them, might be to protect themselves. And I totally understand when this happens with young people, but man, I just wish that there was some sort of like true filtering process, like prerequisites that need to be hit before you can even you shouldn't have to just go to school and get your associates or your bachelor's in fucking criminal justice or something. You like the training that they have to do the training that they have to do is 6 months, and
That's it.
the thing is, there's a people have to go to like, train longer to be a fucking barber, like, there's like 10 months to be a barber. Like, it's just so wild to me that 6 months is all it takes for you to get a gun and say, "Here, I'm putting you on the street with the authority to control citizens," and it's just wild to me. I don't even the thing is, as much as I wanna complain, I don't even know what they would have to change within the I don't even know what police training is like, but all I know is that it's not fucking working. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what it is that they're using to filter out, um, people obviously, you can't fucking give somebody a test to see if they're racist, but
There's got to be some sort of
there's
like
gotta be
emotional
something.
fitness test or something.
I
Because
don't know,
you could
like, they need
Those
see
to
it.
put these
exist.
motherfuckers in, like, what would you do situations, like, test these motherfuckers on the street in their real life, like like, catch them on the street. I don't know, you know what I mean, though? Like, they need to I wish there was a way to test people without them knowing they were being tested.
It reminds I don't know why, but what you just said reminds me of that scene from Men in Black where they're on the shooting range and all those dudes are like shooting all the aliens and then Will
Oh, Will
Smith
Smith turns out and shoots the
shoots a little
little
girl with
girl,
a bush.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made I remember that. It just makes me wonder how like, just thinking on it, how what could they do to make me feel comfortable enough for me to say, "Yes, you can carry a gun, you can serve and you can protect." How do you judge the quality or the content of somebody's character? How do you actually do that?
What I something else that I was kind of thinking of too is like when you're in the military, there is a progression to get to the point where you're on a special operations task force. You're with an operational detachment alpha. You go from infantry to ranger to or airborne, and then you get drafted essentially. Like it's like once you get in, you're on task force, you're an operator because you've proven yourself that you're not just an effective killer, but you have sound judgment, you work well with the squad, you work well with the team. Those are the people that make it to that progression. SEALs, it's a little bit different. You can go through buds training, and you become a SEAL shortly thereafter, but even then there's an internal hierarchy where you're not on team 6 for a long time. Like those are the best of the best. You're on team 2 or whatever it is. I don't know much about the SEALs myself. Never had to really deal with them. We don't have that for police. It's like
you're ranked until they lose their job or something. Like they shouldn't.
Yeah.
If they get reported, I don't know. I believe that the person didn't the officer that murdered George Floyd, didn't he have a bunch of like
He's had a record of
reports?
killing
Yeah, he
people.
has a record,
Mhm.
and they just put him back on the fucking street to do the same shit again.
Yep. And the police are similar to the military in a lot of ways, but not beyond basic military. And they need to change that. Like, I don't think as a rookie who's being involved in traffic stops, you should necessarily go into a situation with a sidearm. But at the same time, we can't send cops out there when we have a Second Amendment, and I could be carrying a weapon on me lawfully, and then I get in an argument with the cop and I lose my cool. And what's the cop going to do if I've got a 9 on me, and I'm going to kill him? Nothing.
Right.
He can tase me, maybe if he's lucky.
Those don't even always work. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like we're sending underqualified cops out to the front lines to deal with really shitty situations and shitty people, and sometimes they get it wrong. They have a judgment call, it goes poorly, and that's it. You just ended someone's life and you were wrong. So
I feel like there's a lot of like this whole like not even just like technical training for police. I don't know shit about police training, but I feel like a weak point is being really shown now with the protests, even like especially peaceful protests where you see police in riot gear like literally like beating people who are being peaceful. You know what I mean? Like
They act as if they don't have to face any consequences.
It's
like, they can
crazy.
truly do whatever they want, and you can tell like through like what they're doing. Like there's no way that somebody would do this if they knew that once they were going home that they wouldn't have a job. Like there's no way.
I feel like a lot of these police are not. Again, I'm speaking from a place of like ignorance because I don't know shit about police training, but I feel like there's something wrong because like that they're like there's so many stories. I mean, I was on Twitter and someone compiled 51 images and videos of police officers during this last week, like basically unprovoked, like just lighting protesters up. I mean, with like rubber bullets or mace.
It makes you
or,
wonder what the person that's giving them the orders is saying to them. And then also I feel like they're just following by following by example. So like if they see other cops doing this and getting away with it, they know that they can do it. They're getting fucking irritated out there and they want people to go home. They just start harassing, violating these protesters. And then once the protesters are riled up, now they have a reason to be aggressive. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like they're just doing it to kind of control whatever's happening, but like to their advantage. Like if they want to get aggressive, all they have to do is spray one person. Everybody gets pissed off. Now there's a fucking angry mob, and now they can do something about it.
Like I'm looking on Twitter and like there's just as we're talking about this, there's in Buffalo there was this cop who shoved this old white dude to the ground. The guy falls backwards and his head lands on the pavement. You can see in the video it's bleeding enough for it to like be on the pavement. And one cop tries to stoop over to check on him, but the cop behind him like stops him from checking. They just all walk around him and just let him like fucking bleed out. I mean, I think he's stable, is what people are saying, but like shit like that shouldn't be okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Well,
ridiculous.
yeah, but they're not trained as paramedics.
No, but
In
like,
Well, they are trained in like simple first aid
simple,
though.
yes.
Yeah. So whenever somebody is in need of medical assistance, that is supposed to be their first priority above
Yes.
arresting them. They should make sure the person is gonna fucking survive whatever is happening to them. And then the second priority, of course, is like making sure that they,
I just don't
make it
understand
to the
why.
courtroom to face their fair trial. But
I
I
just don't
feel like
understand why
some
they even was shoved. I don't even understand why they're getting like that physical with peaceful
I couldn't
protesters.
I really couldn't answer that for you. But I do feel like a lot of cops take into their own hands, like placing the judgment on people instead of allowing them to make it to the courtroom, they deal their own judgment onto people, which I feel like obviously it's not their job. Their job is to decide whether or not somebody is breaking the law. If they're breaking the law, they arrest them and put them in jail until the person can have their own fair trial to determine whether or not the person was breaking the law or not. Like the person is like people are not automatically guilty like in the eyes of the law until they're proven guilty in a courtroom. So but I feel like a lot of police officers are taking it in their own hands to decide themselves. And like obviously in certain circumstances, some people are flat out wrong and the judgment is correct. But a lot of these situations, people are fucking dying and with no fucking proof to show for a reason of why they did, besides the cop is saying, I feared for my life or oh I didn't know, or like some bullshit excuse as to why they felt that it was okay to take somebody's life. This
It's
shit,
just
simply put, just sucks. Like,
yeah.
how do you fix such a like, what do people call it? The biggest gang? Like like,
Yeah.
the police
They were
are
arresting
literally
like
a
news
gang.
reporters, dude, like and shooting them with rubber
They were
pellets.
literally f they were li I saw was happening in DC. They were pushing the reporters, hitting them with these shields.
What about the CNN news crew that got
Yeah, that's what I was
arrested?
talking
Mhm.
about.
Yeah, like that was wild
And then
to
a little
watch.
further away was a white news crew, like from CNN
Also
as
CNN.
well. Like it's so
Just
blatant.
vibing. Just vibing, just watching
Oh
everything go
my
down.
god.
Aliens. It's gonna
Like
come down and be like, "We're taking over. You know, this is it."
honestly, I'm totally down for an alien invasion right now, like, sign me up. Like, honestly,
Aliens don't wanna fuck with us.
I feel like the aliens are out in space, and if we were on the list of planets to completely destroy, they definitely have put us on the list now, like, they're just like, "Oh, we were on the fence about whether or not we're gonna let Earth survive, but this is really, like, one of those things where it's like,
It's a
we can't
wrap.
even get past something biological, something that are in our genes, which is the color of our skin, we can't even get past that." Yeah, and it's how long has this Earth been here? Like, too long for us to still be arguing over being treated fairly based off the color of our skin.
On the more lighter and more positive side of things, and to the very point of, we're one generation past desegregation and civil rights. In 500 years from now, our society as it exists, assuming we make it that long, is going to look so fucking stupid and
Yes,
so
there nobody's
fucking
gonna be
barbaric.
nobody's even I honestly sorry, but, like, there's probably not gonna be very many white people left. Everybody's everybody's
uh,
mixing races, like
oh, okay.
yeah,
I see where
not in, like, "Oh, you guys are totally gonna be
context,
dead."
Jayla.
You guys are totally gonna be dead. No, like, I feel like that's why people are getting scared now, is, like, seeing how free people really are and seeing how people are mixing races and they're not I feel like the white supremacists and, like, people that aren't necessarily white supremacists, but not necessarily not racist,
Mhm.
are seeing this type of shit and they're like, "Damn, like,
We're an
my
endangered
people
species.
my people, we're not gonna be here anymore." And it's just
Yep.
like, it is what it is. I got a lot of shit in me, and white is one of them. Um, I mean, I honestly don't know any direct white people in my family, and I can only assume that something happened. something happened at some point in history that maybe wasn't the best thing. But I just can only assume that people are getting kind of scared because they feel like they're gonna become the minority. And the way that minorities are right now, if white people ever got to the point where they were treated like us, imagine, imagine how up in arms, imagine the protests, imagine what they would do if they were being treated the way that we were treated at any
I
point in the
mean, we
future.
had a bunch of like these people in was it Michigan come out when we had that coronavirus curfew, with their
They couldn't get their
freaking
fucking haircuts. They weren't mad about going back to work, they were mad about somebody else not having to go to work to do what they wanted them to do. Like, they wanted their haircut. It's so
yeah.
funny seeing the comparison though of the white people screaming at the police for a haircut versus black people screaming at the police for equal rights. And the way that they're being treated versus how we are being treated is actually amazing to see the difference. And then the people will watch that and still say, "Well, I see no problem with it." Or like how can you look at that and see no difference in the treatment?
Yep.
I don't get it. I it's scary, man. It's a
It's
scary
like
time to
one
be
after the
alive.
other. It's like literally like
This shit happened yesterday, and this is what's
yeah.
happening today.
There's this just new stuff coming up constantly, and
It's
I feel like
scary.
it's exposing like a real freaking
The
problem that
bias, the prejudice, the racism.
even just like police brutality in general, like just in general, like I was just browsing on Google and apparently, like I have to go back and find it, but apparently like police trained for 110 hours in like firearms and all that stuff, but only 8 in like mediation and conflict resolution,
De-escalating thing.
de-escalating. Yeah, like I don't know how true that statistic is.
I mean, I
Um,
guess it would be based on like what's like a school by school, like police
maybe
school
it's
by
on
yeah.
average. Yeah,
I'm
but
Yeah.
honestly shocked 110 hours on a firearm or a firing range is what you're saying, because I know some cops, and the training is literally a joke.
Yeah.
So
well,
I
I
don't
don't
think that
know.
they take I mean, obviously you have to pass a firearms test, like you have to pass a shooting test, but honestly shooting isn't hard. Um the first time I shot, I was a pretty good shot already. All you got to do is fucking aim and hit something and
it's just aim forehead.
yeah, just aim and shoot something and honestly, I like personally I think shooting in real life is easier than shooting in a fucking video game. So, um I it's I'm just so disappointed in this country, man. And I can only imagine what other people like, you know what one of the craziest things to me, which is what I'm also happy about, with the media is one of the biggest things that really changed how changed like that brought about change in this country was how America was being viewed by other countries when all of this stuff was happening with segregation and the black people being killed in the streets, arrested, attacked by dogs, being hosed down, being lynched, murdered. All this stuff was being aired on TV in other countries, and we were being held accountable by other countries to do better. So one thing I am happy about is that this shit isn't happening silently just to us. Like people in other countries can see what's happening over here, see how fucked up it is, how dumb it is, and they're holding us accountable for making these changes. This is something that is going to encourage people to vote. Like, if
Yes.
people didn't take that
Yeah.
shit
I think that's
seriously
the silver
before,
lining.
then they're definitely gonna take it seriously now. And I know a lot of people before, oh, our vote doesn't count. The electoral college is broken. I don't give a fuck if you think it works or not. If you do you want to keep dealing with this shit? Do you want to deal with the president that you feel like does not respect you, doesn't respect your people, doesn't that truly runs himself based off of or this country based off of his ego?
Yep.
A lot of people are like, "Oh, I like him because he's so honest." It's scary how honest he is, but at least we don't have to guess with him. Like we know exactly what Donald Trump is feeling when he's feeling it. And when he's gonna do something dumb, it's not really ever a surprise because he's talked about it or tweeted about it. And that's one thing that I can appreciate about him is that he doesn't really surprise me anymore.
There's always a
Um
tweet.
yeah, there's always a
Always.
tweet, there's always some sort of clear sign that he's gonna do something, like, whenever he was beefing with, Korea, like, kinda knew we kinda always he kept us like, with other presidents, I felt like we kinda never knew what they were gonna decide, but we always know where Donald Trump stands on on something, which I can appreciate, but that doesn't mean that I appreciate where he's standing at. It just means I at least I know where he is. So
You made a very good point that I would like to really hammer home for anyone that's listening to this is uh the age group that is probably our audience right now. You're in your early 20s, maybe your late teens. Uh you are by far the most under-registered gender, or not gender, sorry,
Generation.
age group and generation for voting, and yet you're the most vocal on social media. So it makes people feel good to vent, and it's good to vent on socials. But if you're not registered to vote, you are not doing a goddamn thing. Like, you are not helping. There are local
you're letting the
elections.
people that you don't like, the people that
Yep.
are racist, are going out and voting for the people that are gonna make the shit that they like to happen, while we're
Yep.
sitting at home complaining about the electoral college or whatever you want to complain about. Like you're just sitting at home complaining while the people that you don't like are making shit happen in their favor.
I think, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I gotta own up to it, dudes. Like, I'm one of those types that literally has never registered to vote or voted, but like,
You need to go do that.
Yeah,
right.
I
So
don't-
like,
I'm gonna put you on the spot right now, Candy. Like, you need to do that.
so what I'm getting at is like, I feel like this presidency, like, sure, it's crazy, the whole Russian investigation and how he treats people and just the general decorum that got like upended. But like, what's really doing it for me now is like, I just realized I don't really care as much about that stuff as I do about. I just want someone in office who gives a shit about like social issues, like just treating, like, like your country, like it's actually has people in it. I don't know, and
Yes.
I think
humans,
humans, right? And
worthy humans.
so for me, anyways, like this is definitely a point where I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna vote this year. And
Good.
I'm,
Even
I'm,
if you
I'm
don't
owning up
have
to
a
it.
lot of great
I'm owning up
options.
to it. Like I just never did it because I
Yeah.
felt like it didn't matter. Or
It's kind of like you're picking your poison sometimes. Like you never really fully like the people that are there, but there's honestly one person that you really hope to God doesn't make it, and just don't fucking vote for him. For some people, it might be Donald Trump. For other people, like at last election, it might have been Hillary Clinton.
Well, I mean, you elect your local sheriff,
Yeah, we could.
your mayor. Like, you need to participate in local elections. You need to do research. Go out of your way to say, what is this person? What's their background? The local board of education for your local schools affects the next generation of people being educated, and like, it's such an important facet of our democracy. And I know that, like, it sounds like I'm just an old person saying the shit that your parents used to say, but they're fucking right. Like, you're not doing shit unless you're voting. So it's incredibly important. I can't stress that enough. If there's one thing you can do to make this better, elect the next sheriff in your county.
I
Elect
wish that we had like
someone else.
better leadership. I think a lot of our parents like don't really. I mean, my parents now push me, but when I was growing up, they didn't tell me they didn't get me hype about voting. Like they didn't. I don't even think they really understand it themselves, to be honest. But I
That's
feel
fair.
like we don't really have people. We never had people like telling us like to go out and vote until like it was time to vote, and by then we didn't see it as important. We didn't really like our whole lives we watched other people choose for us, like who is our president, and then by the time that we get a chance to, it's just like whatever. I'll just keep doing what I've been doing, letting other people choose. It doesn't matter to me. So I just feel like there's not a lot of urgency behind voting. There has not been a lot of urgency behind voting until like now, where
you can
I
see it.
you
Yeah,
can
you can.
see where shit is so wrong.
Yeah.
Things are so messed up, and um it's just I can't keep going. It can't keep going on like this.
You know what annoys me? This is off topic, real quick, but I want to do it before I forget, real quick. Is don't mean to cut you off, but like you notice because we're talking about how like how big this whole thing is, right? And you're seeing companies like specifically gaming companies like delay releases or like delay
Yeah, the
announcements.
PlayStation 5 announcement was delayed. I thought that was huge.
Yeah, it's massive. But what really bothers me is seeing the cesspool of comments from these fucking kids who like are upset they're like, "Oh man, why are you bringing politics into like games? I play games to escape." I'm like, dude,
Play the
some people don't
game.
have that privilege. Like, I'm sorry, but I just need to get this off my chest because it's like to those people, like, fuck you,
Like, if you were to make a
honestly.
comment on Twitter, they'd be like, "Candy, we listen to you because you play games. Like, why are you being like?" That's what happened during ALGS. Whenever we made our statements, like people were in the chat like, "Why are we making this about politics? This is Apex. Like, we don't need this." It's just
I'm
like,
convinced.
are you that dumb?
I'm
Like,
convinced those are like the next generation of I don't want to say like racist, but like less than open-minded people. Like when they get older, they're gonna have like a very apathetic attitude towards any sort of social issues. Because I don't know. I just have a feeling.
They're letting the machine take over.
Right. I don't know. Anyways, I just wanted to say that because it's just something I've been noticing. I'm
they're gonna
like,
comment on this podcast too. Like, why are you guys talking about this? Why are you talk? We watch
Why
you
is this
because
a political
you
episode?
play games.
guess
Like,
what? It's our fucking podcast. If you don't like it, then
it's
see
not what
you.
I signed up for. It's just so funny to me. This is human rights. We're literally living in history. This is gonna be in history books.
Yeah,
This
I
is
don't
Imagine
not
being
know.
something
upset
that's
over a video game announcement because it just bothers me. It makes my skin crawl, honestly.
it's sad.
Do you
It
guys
really is.
do you guys want to we're at like the 2 hour mark now. Do you guys want to maybe put together like some closing statements and wrap things up, or what are you feeling?
Yeah.
What are you feeling?
Yeah, for sure. We wrap it up. Um, I
Well, yeah. What do you want to say, Jelly? You
I guess
start.
I guess going out on what we were just speaking on, um, a lot of stuff is happening in this country, a lot of changes coming. We're living in history. This is gonna be stuff that's gonna be in history books. Just make sure you're on the right side of history when all this is done. Don't end up on the wrong side. Don't please.
Yeah.
I'm begging you. And please vote. Please vote. Whenever the election is, whether it's for it doesn't vote for any chance that anything that you're allowed to vote for, go vote for it. Anything. Know who is running your life. Research them and know what they stand for and go vote for the people that you believe will be best for you. Don't let people run your life. That's it.
Uh,
Candy?
uh, I don't know. I mean, like we're in a. I don't know. I feel like I've said everything I wanted to say in this podcast, but like I feel like this round, I hate calling it a round, but really it feels like it comes in waves, right? Like with this kind of stuff. I feel like it's the biggest there ever was. And well, honestly, we should have figured this out years ago, but I guess now is a better time than ever to kind of like really like Jayla said, like for people like me, to like to vote or at least take a stand, on what's going on. And I don't know. I just I'm kind of I don't want to say I'm happy this is all happening, but I think it's needed that's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do know what you mean, because it's like finally something is happening about it, even if it took some of the worst things to cause it to happen. Like a guy was murdered on camera. And I think people are reacting in kind. So in a way, this is the darkest timeline, but I think that the pendulum is swinging the other way. And I think everybody can kind of feel that momentum, not only peer to peer, but also that all of the businesses are making these tweets and donations because it is historical and people don't want to be on the wrong side, or on the wrong side anymore, because like silence is condoning. It's the opposite of helping. So no, I'm just grateful to have listened to you guys today and to have been heard, because yeah, I think I've just been listening a lot, and I think I'm starting to finally piece together for myself like how I feel about it and how I want to respond going forward. So thanks, guys.
It's good, man. I'm glad you feel that way.
Oh yeah, dude. What about you, Poner?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I can share in all my years of wisdom and experience on this planet.
You're not that much older than us, Poner.
I'm quite a bit older than most people listening to this.
That's a fair point.
And I'm pretty confident I'm older than all three of you. Not by a lot, not to make it a big difference. I'm just making a joke mostly. But I think the biggest thing that I could tell anyone who's listening to us for, I don't know, emotional stability or to feel better is that things are getting better very slowly, but they are. Like I was saying earlier, in the far future, after we're all dead and gone, rest assured, your children will live in a better America. They will live in a better world, and it will continue to get better for their children. But the only way that that is ensured is by you going out and you registering to vote, and you vote. If it's local elections, if it's primaries, whatever it is, presidential elections, and it doesn't even matter. Like if you're listening to all this and if you're seeing all this happen, and you still say to yourself, "I'm going to vote for candidate X over candidate Y," that's great because you exercise your right, and that's the biggest thing. That is what this country needs right now, more than any other time in history. It feels like. But also, please, for the love of God, just stop the rioting, stop the looting, be kind to each other, and sit down and have a conversation. It's easy to get mad. It's easy to lash out. It's hard to understand people. And I guess that's my main message right now. I don't condone violence, but I understand why people come to that. Everyone gets mad. me of all, I get mad over.
You get very mad.
I get mad over
big
stupid
mad.
shit, but it's because I care. Like I get mad because I care. And if I was like God help this country. If I was a black man in America today, I'd be out there too. I can honestly say that. Like if I felt the injustice that African Americans feel today, I don't know that I wouldn't be looting and rioting right now. I'd be fighting. I'd be right there on the front lines because that's who I am, and I'm passionate about a lot of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I understand, and I mean I say I understand. I may not be able to understand fully because I am not a black man in America, but I don't know. I've got a lot of emotions about this, especially coming from the Midwest, coming from a background where I don't know. I learned this stuff late in life, and I wish I hadn't. And it's unfortunate, but anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
It's not a Forrest Gump line.
No, it's not. It's close though. Are you trying to say I'm like Forrest Gump? Right?
That's all I have to say about that.
That is the
all
line.
I gotta say about that. I don't know.
It's getting late.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I hope I did this justice.
I think we did. I don't know. I'd say we.
I guess we'll know if we get canceled or not.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Honestly, I
we get
don't
canceled. Back to the drawing boards.
Yep. That is a Forrest Gump line. Thank you, Boom.
Well,
All
thank
right,
you guys
for
for
making me
having
feel like Forrest
me
Gump.
on this very famous, very exclusive
Dude, next time we
podcast.
gotta get you on for the ALG stuff. ALGS stuff.
I'll definitely have a lot to say about it.
That'd be
I'm
dope.
excited. I told my stream today. I was like, yeah, I gotta go. I gotta enter because I gotta go to help be on Kenny's podcast, and they're like, ooh, next guest leaked. I was just like, oh my god.
So
I was
that's
like, wait, what are you
serious.
talking-
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude, they're dramatic, but yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.
It was lovely.
Absolutely.